Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today we're talking about the first content drop for the year of The Division. That's right, it's Tom Clancy's The Division Recruited, the brand new novel for the Division franchise released last Tuesday, February 1st, and I have read through it and am very excited to be bringing you all a review today. Now, for anyone who may be interested in reading this or hadn't realized that it released, it has, but with one big caveat, and that's that it is currently only available in ebook formats. The paperback version has now received two separate 2-week delays and is currently scheduled for March 8th. This sprouting from just supply chain issues from what I've heard, nothing really to do with the Division or Ubisoft specifically, and so that's certainly a bummer. I'm a huge believer in the physical copy. Frankly, I super dislike reading virtually. However, both in the hopes to not get spoiled and because I wanted to deliver this review in a timely manner, I opted to go the virtual route, and it's not that bad. I just downloaded the Kindle app on my laptop and read it that way. Obviously, I would have preferred the paperback, but it is what it is. So yeah, if you're interested in reading this, it is less than $10 for an ebook on Amazon, or like I said, the paperback version drops in just about a month, and I will leave a link to that Amazon listing in the description below for you all to go and check out. But shifting over to the actual review, as I've said, we have our first big content drop for the Division universe here, which is pretty exciting. Now, I debated whether or not I wanted to do a spoiler section in this review, and I don't think I'm going to, mainly because it's not mandatory. However, what I do think I will do is label specific elements of things that happen in the story and describe general events without giving any specifics. So this review will not spoil the story for you. However, if you want to go in completely 100% blind, then maybe you do want to hold off on watching this until you've read the book. And hopefully I think that strikes a good balance between the two, because I know a large number of you probably won't care if I spoil it either way, but I still want to be respectful of those who would. All right, let's dive into The Division Recruited. This is a great book. Thank you all so much for watching. No, I'm kidding. But it is. Recruited is another fantastic entry into the Division universe. If you were unaware, this is the third Division novel that has been released. New York Collapse was the original book, and it has a very original style that released alongside the Division 1. Broken Dawn was the direct sequel to that and released alongside the Division 2, and it follows a more traditional, I would say, novel format. And now 3 years later, we have Recruited. The big difference this time around is that it's written by a brand new author, Thomas Parrott, instead of Alex Irvine, who wrote the first two, and it's handling a completely different set of characters than in the first two books. Namely, it does not have April Kelleher, which is sad for sure. I think she's a super underrated character. However, I am happy to confirm that neither of those two big changes leads to any sacrifice in excitement or quality here. Thomas does a brilliant job of taking on the mantle and telling a new story within the Division world, and the characters he's introduced here are phenomenal as well. And what's perhaps most impressive is that he has gone on record to say that he wasn't familiar with and hadn't played the Division before signing on to the project. And so in light of that, the accuracy and faithfulness to the Division world and IP here is stellar. I think one of my absolute favorite parts here is the depiction of combat. It's no surprise, I think, that video game combat, especially that of a looter shooter, is not very representational to real life. I know, mind-blowing. That said, the fights in this novel are incredible. There are two in particular, and I won't spoil them here, but you'll know which ones I'm talking about if you read the book. But there is a recurring conflict in the story with an enemy faction that we know from one of the games, right? And there are two fights with this faction that are just so well done, especially in the sense that, as a game fan, I could pick out the various enemy archetypes from their descriptions on the page and visualize their weapons and tactics and just movements because of it. And so it was just so well portrayed, from the Division agent's tech and strategy to the enemy's brutality, everything. So that was excellent. I was able to visualize and follow along with the combat super well, which is something that I think can be hard to do in the written format. Circling back a bit, the new characters introduced here are wonderful as well. In particular, there are, again, no surprise, Division agents in this story, and I think I can say without a doubt that this is my favorite portrayal of the Division in any of the three novels. They're always treated as these very stoic, mission-driven, elusive, etc. people, and that's good, that's how they should be, right? But you also know that deep down there's a person in there with their own feelings, emotions, and everything. And in Recruited, in my opinion, it gives us the best portrayal to date of a Division agent who is doing their absolute best to stay on mission, but is plagued by the very human conflict of emotion. And so you see the cracks in their stoicism, you see they have these moments of vulnerability, and I thought that that was once again very wonderful. It really elevated the plot and journey that these characters are on. Shifting over to the plot, as we were just saying, very gripping. It always made me want to keep turning the page. You have this very big overarching mystery throughout most of the story that is relevant in a sense to the ongoing world and future of the Division, and it's a really great hook to get you invested at the beginning, and as it evolves, so does your interest and curiosities, as the story progresses. And I'll be completely honest, there were a few twists and turns in the story that truly surprised me and truly frightened me as to what was going to happen to our characters because of these new revelations and events. So that was really fun. One of my favorite parts about Broken Dawn was some of the world building they did in there, like how April manages to escape Manhattan and then you had to use different connections to pursue different leads and make it to that barge, was it, that traveled up the canal? I ate that stuff up. I loved it. And I think the journey that takes place in Recruited, wherever it may be leading, I won't spoil, is equally as intriguing and exciting as April's journey to Ann Arbor was in Broken Dawn. So I was very satisfied by that. Another thing I wanted to mention that I really appreciated is that Recruited, by far, in my opinion, has the most callbacks and ties to the actual game world. I suppose Broken Dawn did too, with Kelso showing up and they went to the theater settlement, right? But Recruited has an equal number, if not more, of these references, and part of what was super awesome to see is that it references and makes comments on events that have taken place since the Division 2's main campaign. I won't say which ones in particular or in what capacity, but to see Recruited actually push the narrative forward and confirm a continuation, in a sense, was really neat. And you can actually see time progressing throughout the novel as we may or may not be finally moving out of the deep summer setting of the Division 2. That's all I'll say on that, but it was super appreciated on my end. That said, I don't want to get anyone's hopes up. I don't believe Recruited makes any connection or sets up any future game content we have coming for the Division franchise. It does introduce us to a pretty big new detail about the Division organization and infrastructure, I will say, but I don't think that has any direct correlation to the stuff we're waiting on right now. Division 2's content, Heartland, etc. I could be wrong. Certainly, I don't have all the details. I don't know what's going to be in those things, at launch. But I just don't want to get anyone's hopes up or, have you go in with the wrong expectations. That said, the word Heartland is used more than once in the book. And so even if that may not directly correlate or have significance towards the game we're anticipating, that was pretty cool to see, in my opinion. So overall, characters, plot, combat depiction, IP accuracy, and faithfulness, all the core things you want from a video game novel are here. Recruited is a fantastic time. I do have one main criticism, however, and of course all this stuff is subjective. You might read this book and totally disagree with me, and that's fine. But for me, the tone was a little bit inconsistent, and maybe a lot of you wouldn't pick up on this or care about this in the least, but I am a film major, and I've always really loved writing and storytelling, so this was just something I noticed personally, but it was just like, there were some very big swings between the very lighthearted, upbeat moments and some very, very dark moments. And I don't want to sound like I'm complaining about the darkness of the story. Like, the Division at face value is a dark, depressing world and premise. So I don't want to diminish or devalue that representation here, because I think a lot of people will appreciate that. But there are some moments, especially as you continue to get further into the story, that just get so dark. And personally, I thought it was almost unnecessarily vicious and brutal. Like, there's one story beat that I want to elaborate upon because I don't want to outright spoil anything, but our characters encounter a setting, a situation that I think could have been a very cool opportunity, especially as a game fan, to show us something new and expand upon our knowledge and understanding of the Division world and the larger country that we haven't explored yet. But instead of giving us any new lore or showing us something new and unexpected, you just get slapped in the face with this extremely dark, very real terror that was just too much for me at a point, because the characters had already been going through it, right? They were already not having a very good time. And so this just knocked them down several more rungs that I felt weren't necessary to underscore the brutality of the Division world. That's about all I can say without spoiling it. And that's a nitpick. Let me be clear. I love the overall story and plot, but I felt as though it was a bit of a roller coaster here with a lot of highs, a lot of very low lows. And sometimes it either clung on to one or the other too long, or it didn't justify the switch between the two. And so I would have preferred just a bit more of a consistent through line as far as the tone and feeling of the story went, but that's just my opinion. I'd be very curious to hear yours, and that is going to do it for my review of The Division Recruited. Thank you all so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe with notifications on to be updated every time I upload. In conclusion, I highly recommend this novel. If you were a fan of the first two, if you're a fan of The Division and of books in general, or you just want a good story to get into, there is a link to Recruited's Amazon listing in the description below. I highly recommend you go and check it out and support this latest entry in the Division universe, especially considering, like I mentioned, this is Thomas's first venture into our beloved franchise. I think he did a wonderful job. I would love to see more stories either with these characters or just from his perspective in general. So you should go check it out if you're a Division fan. I really do think you'll enjoy it. That's just going to about do it for me, everybody. Whether you've read Recruited or not, be sure to leave your thoughts on it down below. Trying to keep things spoiler-free, I'll say, but if you don't want to be spoiled, then just be cautious upon entering into the comment section, I'll say. But yeah, that's all I've got, folks. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and until the next one, guys, RogueGold out.